Well, by the first break in proceedings, Facebook's share price had risen by almost 5% as markets reacted favourably to Mr. Zuckerberg's performance, increasing his net worth by an estimated $3 billion. He's got more questions to come later today. Let's get some reaction to what was asked and how it was answered from Louise Horton, who deleted her Facebook account following the site's data breach. Matthew Rice is with us. He's from the UK's only digital campaigning organisation, the Open Rights Group. And we've got MD for a marketing agency called Social Media Limited, Kostas Alekoglu. OK, I'm just going to read you this quote. Fake news, foreign interference in elections and hate speech, as well as developers and data privacy. We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a mistake. It was my mistake, said Mr. Zuckerberg, and I'm sorry. I started Facebook, I run it. I'm responsible for what happens here. How did that go down with you, Matthew?
Apology number 4,573 from Mark Zuckerberg. There's a certain point at which the apologies have to start ringing hollow, and the questions become, what are you doing to actually change this?
What did you think of some of the questions?
The questions, some of them were informed and some of them were a little bit not so much on point, because some of the people on the panel did not fully understand how Facebook works.
Is that shocking to you that enough prep hadn't necessarily been done?
I think in some areas, yes. If you're somebody from the industry, you could quite easily identify the language that was used, such as, you know, Facebook sort of selling of data to its advertisers, which they don't exactly do directly through the platform.
What was the worst question that you've heard?
The worst question that I've heard, it was possibly around, you know, how they delete the data, and the fact that, you know, nobody prompted further as to how long after somebody has tried to delete their data, the data is actually wiped from Facebook systems.
Louise, how did you think he did? I mean, he talked about, you know, when he was told that the user agreement sucks, that we've all clicked and ticked and said, I agree with, he was told that's the big thing we should work on. Is that enough for you?
No, it wasn't. It was a PR exercise from Mark Zuckerberg last night. They knew about this years ago and were told about it. Their first reaction when the Cambridge Analytica story was about to break was to threaten to sue the Guardian newspaper and other people that were doing that. So he knew about this. This was just a PR exercise, and it worked for him.
Why do you say that?
Because the share price went up again.
Right.
The share price had plummeted when all this came out, because people like me had left and had been worried about their use of data. And last night it went back up again, so he achieved what he needed to achieve.
And the answer to the question that Kostas said was the worst question, if they choose to delete their account, how long do you keep their data? Mark Zuckerberg said, I don't know the answer to that. Well, that applies to you, doesn't it? Because you've deleted your Facebook account. They might still have your data.
Yes, and the tool they brought out last night so that you could actually look and see what data they have and whether your data have been shared. I can't access that now because I've deleted my data, but I did download everything they had on me, and it was quite shocking to see what they collected over the years. All my contacts from years before I even joined Facebook. So yeah, they have a lot on everyone.
He was asked, do you consider the 87 million users victims? And Mr. Zuckerberg said, yes. Do you believe him?
I think we're victims, but we're also commodities. We're what they use to sell to achieve their aims. We became the pawns in everything. So yes, we're victims. Some of us more knowingly than others, but we've become the commodity.
Right. Regulation is going to happen, you would have thought, having seen some of that grilling overnight. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think the big question, and you know, Mark Zuckerberg admits itself, is what kind of regulation. You know, we're stuck in this discussion around data protection, but the crux of this argument and the data breach, it's around what happened during the democratic process. I think some of the regulation is going to come around how elections are run and what social media means during an election. I think that's kind of where we should be moving in that direction.
Okay, can you be more specific? How I'm not asking you to necessarily come up with that legislation, but how would that work?
Well, there's a kind of level of transparency that people need to understand when they're being advertised to. So there's the big difference has been that people are creeped out by advertising, but when advertising becomes a political process, that transparency about who's speaking to you, why they're speaking to you,
who's made the video,
who endorses this video, all of that needs to be put front and centre. That's how users begin to kind of understand what debate they're involved in. And I think that's the problem here. People feel manipulated. People feel like they've kind of lost control here. And the steps towards taking back control are going to have to involve a lot of work on the other side. It's not just putting responsibility on the user. It's political parties, as much as Facebook and the arms of the kind of campaigning organisations that they'll work with, they have to take on that responsibility.
What do you think's next?
Well, certainly regulation, because it seems that the social networks, they haven't been able to manage to do what they have to do themselves. So it seems now that we're going to have a set of laws that guide us as to how we use the data, how much of the data we use, and how much we, intrusively we're allowed to go into into people's details in order to pinpoint them, to offer them a product or a service.
And what do you think of this suggestion that he floated there might be a paid-for, ad-free version of Facebook in the future?
That goes straight against the model of Facebook, because Facebook is open to everybody because they use everybody's data. If they put a barrier such as a payment to join Facebook, then that would limit severely the amount of people that join Facebook and Facebook's appeal to advertisers overall.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Really?